What's up? This is Greggatron. This video today is about my red pill moment slash moments, how I became conservative. So my whole life, who is calling me? Don't know who that is. My whole life I thought I was a Democrat. I remember calling myself that as a kid. And I really didn't understand why. It was just normal. But I didn't wake up until 2 years ago when those George Floyd protests were going on. You had Black Lives Matter riots and rallies and protests and whatever you want to call it. All that bad stuff was going on. So me and my brother went to one of those rallies just to see what this is all about. And I was actually going to protest police brutality, right? Well, one of the things they were chanting was prosecute the police. But the cops were the ones who were getting us from point A to point B safely while we, walk down the road or march, whatever you want to call it. And then there was a bunch of people, mostly white people, to be honest. And it's like they were looking at me and my brother like we were like a different species. Like they were totally afraid of us. And we were treating them just normal, but they were treating us like we were on some type of pedestal. Like they were really afraid of black people, but they were clearly just there because of white guilt, something that they had nothing to do with. But whatever. Anyway, fast forward, there's an opportunity for people to go up there and speak on this podium. And there's a bunch of people going up there crying, and it's all emotional. And it's just a mess. Like, I could make a separate video just about that rally. But anyway, I said, man, let me get up on this podium real quick. So they gave me a chance to speak. And I'm saying there are good cops and there are bad cops, right? Because me personally, a lot of my homies growing up, their dads were cops. So I didn't ever think all cops were bad. And when I mentioned we need to take care of ourselves because there's black people in Chicago and other places who are killing each other like crazy. And when I said that, they kicked me off the podium for that. They didn't want to hear that. So I realized, I'm like, okay, so they don't really want to care. They don't really care about black voices. Whatever happened to Black Voices Matter, right? They didn't care about that. They just wanted a bunch of upset people to go up there and complain to further their agenda. Because if you think different from how they think, you're pretty much useless to them. So I'm like, okay. Well, then fast forward, there was that cancel culture season, which was that same summer. Everybody was getting canceled. Everything was getting canceled. They canceled Aunt Jemima, Mrs. Buttersworth, Uncle Ben's. Dr. Seuss was getting canceled. So I'm like, y'all are trying to end racism by taking the black people off the food? Okay. They're trying to cancel Dave Chappelle for talking about transgender people in jokes. He wasn't saying anything horrible. But Roseanne got canceled. They went after all these people for saying just things they didn't agree with. They weren't saying malicious things. But I remember even before that, Lupe Fiasco, his label dropped him for talking about Obama. Well, then fast forward, Eminem was talking about Trump, and it was no big deal. So I'm like, on one hand, you can talk about this guy all you want, but just don't talk about that guy. So I started seeing the double standards. And then all of a sudden, everything was racist. Everything was racist. I'm like, so I didn't see any of this in the 90s. I didn't see any of this in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. Now just everything is racist. Like, let's talk about Dr. Seuss real quick. And I grew up reading Dr. Seuss books. And I remember asking my mom, because she used to read it to us, I said, did you know they're canceling his books? And she said, well, they're only canceling 6 titles. I'm like, right, but isn't that crazy? She's like, well, they were kind of racially insensitive. I'm like, but do they offend you? And she's like, well, I'm like, answer my question. Do those books offend you in any way? And she couldn't answer my question. So a lot of things, and I had a white supervisor who was asking me, is this stuff offensive to you in any way? And I said, no, I don't know why they're fussing over this. Like Aunt Jemima, but that was just crazy. And then fast forward to the presidents, we had Biden versus Trump. And that's kind of what turned me on to politics, because I really didn't care about Hillary versus Trump. I didn't participate in that at all. But when Trump was going against Biden, like, I really started to wake up, because I didn't understand why people hated this dude so much. Like, I didn't like him either because of what people were saying, but I didn't know the real reason why he was so hated. But the last straw was when Biden said, if you have a problem figuring out if you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black. I was like, really? Like, who was this dude to say? First of all, he was almost 80 years old at the time. And he's telling me and other blacks, basically, you guys ain't black unless you vote for me. Like, who are you to say who's going to vote for who based off of color? Like, that's ridiculous. And I was already leaning towards Trump before that, but still, like, that would have been the last straw. And you had all kinds of information out there that I was finding. Like, I was looking at Larry Elder and Candace Owens, who they're just sharp as a whip. Especially Larry Elder, like, he can dismantle a liberal's whole ideology in a matter of sentences. Like, because a lot of liberals, they think with their emotions, that's how they vote. But conservatives vote based off of logic. How much money do you want to keep in your pocket, right? How much government? Do you want big government or small government? Do you want high taxes or low taxes? Well, anyway, Larry Elder will just say, where's the proof on that? Where's the facts on that? Where's the evidence? But they'll just say stuff with no proof. But Larry Elder, he'll just shut people down. So I got on him. Candace Owens. I wrote down some names. Thomas Sowell. He's really good. He's another one. Just doesn't get angry. He just puts the truth out there. He's not one way or the other. He just wants the truth. Jesse Lee Peterson, he's good. The Hodge twins I had been watching for years before they were into politics. Anthony Brian Logan, my brother used to watch him. He still does. Officer Tatum, this guy named Kingface. All these people are saying the roots of the Democratic Party, which I had no clue. Like, one thing Kingface had said, which he died now, but Kingface had said the Democratic Party is responsible for the KKK. I'm like, wait, what? So why would I vote that way? You had Jim Crow, you had segregation, you had slavery laws, slavery itself, you had abortion, I mean, all kinds of stuff. You got the welfare state, the destruction of the family, redlining, all that came from the Democratic Party. All slave owners, right before the Civil War started, they were all Democrats. But I didn't know any of this, right? So when I found this out, I'm like, why would I be voting Democrat? This doesn't make any sense. You know, they lied to us about slavery. They wanted us to believe growing up that the white man just showed up in Africa and started kidnapping a bunch of black people, which doesn't even make sense. Like, do you know how strong and fast and healthy and how much stamina black people have? Like, have you seen the NFL? Like, that's impossible for a bunch of white people to just show up on boats and start kidnapping people. Like, that was not the case at all. So when I found out that blacks were being enslaved by other blacks, and those rich blacks sold those slaves, who were slaves for different reasons, they sold those people to the Arabs, and the Arabs sold those Africans to people around the world. So slavery had nothing to do with color, but they taught us in school like it was pretty much something that just happened here. And they need to teach slavery better, or else people will just get angry. But blacks enslaved one another, Asians enslaved one another, the white man tried to enslave one another. Even blacks enslaved whites in some cases. Even in America, the Native Americans enslaved blacks, and you had black people enslaving other blacks in America. But they don't tell you any of this growing up. So once I realized all this stuff, I'm like, America's not against us. And whenever I would talk to a white Republican who would say, if America's so racist, how did Obama win? And how do we have people like Oprah and Michael Jordan and whatnot? And I would always say, well, that's an exception to the rules. But they're telling the truth. That's right. If this country was so bad, how are all these people making it? But the problem is, when the family was destroyed, that's what changed everything with the welfare state, which was pushed by a Democrat president. You had the welfare state and the war on poverty back in the 60s. But before that, black people were doing very well, in fact. So once I found all this stuff out, like, it was impossible to be a Democrat. Like, once you learn the history about slavery and the two parties, the fact that Abraham Lincoln was the first Republican president, and he freed the slaves. Everybody before him was either a Democrat or an independent. You know, again, slavery had nothing to do with color, but they'll have you thinking that. In fact, it was actually an economic deal. It was a global thing. It was going on all over the world. But once I saw that and I let the anger go, I'm like, man, this is easy. Because I used to think that police would pull you over, or I used to think that black people were getting killed by cops simply because they're black. But then when I realized, oh, wait, this person was reaching for the cop's gun or the taser or fighting with the cop or cursing the cop out, or he was high as a kite, or he was going on a high-speed chase. Oh, okay. But the media won't tell you that. And that's another way I became conservative, when I found out the media is not our friend at all. The media lies probably 99% of the time. This is both liberal and probably conservative. You can't trust the media. You can't trust the government, the FBI, the CIA, the WHO. I mean, I don't trust any of that stuff anymore. Like, the FBI, these are the same people who went after Malcolm X and Dr. King and Marcus Garvey and all these people. Now they turn around and they say, we're the FBI, we're here to help. It's like, nah. But the bottom line is, if you work hard, nobody can stop you from doing anything. And that's why I'm conservative, because I want more money in my pocket. I'm against abortion. Oh, and I'm a Christian. So as a Christian, I can't vote for abortion and gay marriage and all that stuff. And I was already conservative, but if I wasn't, this LGBTQ stuff, that would have been the nail in the coffin. Because they're pushing that stuff on little kids, and that's totally wrong. So yeah, man, that's my red pill moments. So let me know what you guys think. Peace.